Hi and welcome to Mindfulness with Alison. So today I thought it would be important to share with you my journey to becoming a mindfulness teacher. So becoming a mindfulness teacher is not something that happens overnight. It's not a 6-week course or a weekend course. For most people it's quite a long journey. And teaching mindfulness can't come from a book. It has to come from your own practice, and you have to really and truly embody it. I suppose the first time I came across mindfulness was at the end of a yoga session over 20 years ago in London when I was modelling. And I absolutely loved it, the sense of peace and calm that it gave me at the end of the yoga session. And then I started attending the Buddhist Centre every so often, kind of dipping my toe in. And what I absolutely loved about the Buddhist teachings was that they taught us how to work with the mind. And the mind is where we can create a life of heaven or hell, here on earth, not when we pass over. And what I quickly learned is that it was my mind that was causing me so much distress. So I had a history of depression, anxiety, and addictions of all forms. I'm now in recovery many years, and I have completely managed my anxiety and depression through changing my lifestyle. And a huge amount of that has got to do with showing up every day for my meditation practice and living more mindfully. So when I moved to New York in my mid-20s, my friend who used to live across the hall from me took me down to the Kadampa Buddhist Centre. And there was a wonderful teacher there called Kadam Morton. And I remember after the first day of being in that class, I could make some sense of the world. And I always think anyone who can speak to New Yorkers is an incredible teacher. But I do remember the first few times I meditated, I thought I had to clear my mind. I thought I had to get rid of all my thoughts. And there's no such thing. You can't do that. So what is meditation? What is mindfulness? Well, it's basically being with whatever is happening in this moment, with openness, curiosity, and a willingness to be with what is. So very often we want to be further along their path than we are. We want to reach our goals and we're very uncomfortable with the present moment. So mindfulness practice helps us to become aware of the present moment and be okay with whatever is happening for us, good, bad, or indifferent. So a lot of people think if they sit in meditation that they're going to wake up and their life's going to be amazing and they're going to be blissfully happy every day. And unfortunately, that's not the case. So the main aim is to really sit with yourself. Sit with yourself, become an observer, observe whatever is happening for you in that moment. And most importantly, without judgment. So we judge ourselves so harshly. We judge everything we think, do, say, how we show up, how we interact with people, and we're our own worst enemy, our own worst critic. And mindfulness helps us to just come to this place of acceptance. And I have an incredible teacher, Rebecca Peters, who was my coach in UCLA, and she said to me, mindfulness not met with self-compassion causes anxiety. That sentence changed everything for me. Because if we're not used to sitting with ourselves, and we sit on our own with our thoughts, what's going to happen? Yeah, you got it. Some uncomfortable emotions are going to rise to the surface. And if we're not used to sitting with that aspect of ourselves, it can cause us anxiety. So the next most important thing that we need to remember is to meet any feelings or emotions that are coming up with a sense of compassion for ourselves. Now, we will be delving a little bit deeper into all of this as we, move into the world of mindfulness, and I take you through different practices. But over my 20 years of growing with this practice, one of the things I did find most challenging was having compassion for myself. We're not really used to being kind to ourselves. Most of us are really hard on ourselves, as I said before. And when my heart started to open and I started to have a sense of compassion towards myself, I used to become really, really emotional because I wasn't used to showing myself any kind of love or kindness. And having been a fashion model for so long, I always thought I wasn't enough. I was always comparing myself with others, looking around castings, which we do as human beings. We do it all day, every day in our lives. And what the practice has taught me is to be okay and comfortable in my own skin. And it's such a wonderful place to be because we're not constantly trying to grasp on things outside of us. So after my time in New York, I moved home to Ireland and I went to the Kadampa Buddhist Centre in Ireland. And then one day I was looking in the paper and I saw that Sogyal Rinpoche was in Ireland, and my heart leaped. I had read his book when I lost my father, called The Tibetan Book of Living and Dying, when I was 21 years of age. The book had a huge influence on my life and on my practice, and I couldn't believe that this teacher was going to be in Ireland. So I headed off to Dagshinbera on a retreat, and it was life-changing. And for many, many years after that, I used to go on retreats with Sogyal Rinpoche, and it was just absolutely incredible. He was really one of the first teachers that encouraged me to really sit with my pain. To sit with my pain, to watch my pain, to understand that it was part of who I am, and to integrate it as a part of me so that I could start to accept all of me. This is when I began to heal. This is when I really brought all my stuff that I'd suppressed for years up for healing. This is the reason why I was able to come off all my medication for depression and anxiety and eventually move into a life completely free in recovery. I was always hanging on to something outside of myself, drinking to relieve pain, coping with needing the highs to be high and the lows to be lower. And living a more mindful life has encouraged me, I suppose, to deal with all my stuff. Just because we show up and live more mindfully doesn't mean that we don't have to experience any pain. In fact, when you decide to live more mindfully, you're going to have to just walk through that pain. But what it does do is give you the tools to understand yourself a little bit better. And with a good teacher and a lovely community around you, you can kind of build a life together that is incredibly enriching, fulfilling, and very full. So I wanted to know how to bring this practice to a bigger audience. And very often people are uncomfortable with maybe religious or Buddhist settings. And I was doing a talk in America at a conference called Mindful Life a few years ago, and Diana Winston was doing the talk. And she said there's a program in UCLA called the TMF program for teachers. And so I set about applying for that program. It was life-changing and it was truly, truly incredible. We got really immersed into the world of mindfulness meditation with a group of beautiful, like-minded people. So I graduated in December from UCLA, and my deep passion now is to bring these teachings into the world and to share them in a really accessible way. So I live more mindfully because of how it helps me to show up in the world. As a parent, it helps me to take a little bit of a step back. Doesn't work all the time, but most of the time. A little bit of a step back and have that pause. It helps me to respond instead of reacting most of the time in situations. But for me, it's helped me live a life of freedom. Freedom from addiction. Freedom from the awful mental health problems that I struggled with for many years. I was told years ago that I would always be on medication, I would always have anxiety. Depression was just very simply who I was. It was like almost like I was born with it, you know. And I was told this is the way it will always be for you, and it's not. And I firmly believe that change is possible for absolutely every single human being on this planet. You have to want it for yourself, you have to believe that it's possible, and most importantly, you have to show up every day. You have to do the work, because there's no bypassing the work. So sit with yourself, get to know yourself, and although it can be a challenging process at times, ultimately it's an incredibly worthwhile journey. So on this channel, I'm going to be having really incredible special guests who are going to be talking to you about all the different backgrounds they come from in mindfulness. I'm going to be sharing with you the different things I do every day. I have some wonderful techniques that I included in my book, Minding Mom, a self-care book for moms, about how to change your thought patterns, how I pulled myself out of the darkness, and why every day I show up to do this work, to live the life I truly want, the life I was told was never possible for me. So I can't wait to have you join me on this journey. So we're going to be posting videos every week. We're going to be doing some beautiful practices together. I'm going to be recording some morning practices, some lunchtime practices, how to just maybe connect and just come into yourself using your breath. We're going to be doing some nighttime practices and much, much more. So I can't wait to have you on this journey with me.